and welcome to the Trust Actor Islamic Finance Learning Series. I am Bukola Akinyelili Sal. In this episode, we'll be discussing Islamic capital market and ethical finance, especially as we reflect on financial responsibility during the blessed month of Ramadan. And my guest for this episode is Mustapha Mohammed Jafar, a seasoned lawyer and an Islamic capital market expert. Stay with us for this enlightening conversation. Assalamu alaikum, Mr. Mustapha. Thank you for coming to the program.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you very much for having me.
It's my pleasure. Ramadan is such a special time of the year because it's a moment of reflection, renewal, and drawing closer to Allah. Could you share with us some of the most effective ways to strengthen our connection with Allah?
So personally, I think the most important thing is preparation. So preparation is key to making the most of Ramadan and strengthening your connection with Allah. So just like you would prepare for an exam or project at work or anything else, it's very important to prepare for Ramadan to reap the most you can from this special month. So I'd say you begin by setting clear, achievable goals that align with your spiritual aspirations. We're all Muslims, but obviously we're all different people. We all have different aspects of the deen in which we are better at and other aspects in which we might struggle. So though it is good generally to look to improve in the aspects of your deen you're struggling, I would say that Ramadan is the one time of the year where you lean on that in which you're best at. So it's easier for you to reap as much rewards as you are able to. This could be reciting Quran, this could be performing tahajjud, it could be dhikr, it could be anything, just things that come easier to you. I would say you increase and you give importance to these types of things. And I don't believe this preparation is something you start day one, for example, of Ramadan. I'll say the weeks or at least a week leading up to Ramadan, you gradually build up these habits. You put your plan in place. You can even make mistakes and learn from them before Ramadan even starts. So this will help you transition into the month seamlessly. Another thing I think is important is, generally speaking in life, I like to go back to basics and ensure that my fundamentals are solid. But for us, this would be our third prayers. Obviously, we all know how to perform our third prayers, but you can improve in these. You can increase in khushu, which is like your concentration or stillness when you pray. There's this quote from Imam Hanbali that I really, really like. So he says, khushu is when the heart softens and becomes tender, and when it becomes still and humble, and when the heart breaks, it becomes inflamed with love and fear for Allah. So these are things we should aspire to and would help in our general quality of our prayers. And finally, I would say strive. This is the month where you strive for the cause of Allah. This is the month where you strive to earn His pleasure. So just effort is what is required, put in your best, do your best. Yeah, so I believe it's not something you wait until the end to start, or wait till the first day of Ramadan to begin. I think you put the plan in motion, you begin ahead of time, it allows you to make mistakes even. So yeah, I think that's a good one. Another aspect to it is returning to basics. I'm the type of person that likes to return to my fundamentals to ensure that they're solid. And for the fundamentals in Islam, I'll say the third prayers. Obviously, we all know how to say the third prayers, but we can increase in the quality in which we say these prayers. And one aspect is increasing in khushu, which is essentially stillness or your concentration in prayer. Imam Hanbali has this fantastic quotes, which I always come back to. So he describes khushu as when the heart softens and becomes tender, and when it becomes still and humble, and when the heart breaks, it becomes inflamed with love and fear for Allah. So these are amazing qualities one should aspire to attain, especially during this month. And last but not least, I'll say strive. Generally, this is the month where you need to put in effort to reap as much rewards as you can. It's the time for effort. It's the time to do the best you can to earn Allah's pleasure and to work in his cause. So strive.
Absolutely, Mr. Mustapha. Strengthening our connection with the Almighty Allah, particularly during the Ramadan, is a beautiful thing to do, and there are many ways to do that effectively. Thank you very much for sharing your perspective with us on that. Now, let's look at Islamic finance, which has come a long way, evolving into a global industry. Given your expertise as an Islamic capital market and a seasoned lawyer, do you believe that financial activities within the Islamic capital market must explicitly carry the Islamic label, or can the underlying principles speak for themselves?
I personally think the label is important. So it's more than just a branding tool to signal to the world that this is Islamic finance. I think it's more of a commitment to the Sharia principles that are supposed to underpin the product in question. So I'd say in Islamic capital markets, the label itself serves as a sort of indicator to stakeholders that the transaction is free of riba, garar, and other Sharia elements.
Thank you.
Exactly. But having said that, I think the substance of the transaction is far more important than the label itself. So, for example, a sukuk issuance must, in my opinion, generally reflect the risk sharing and the asset backed elements rather than merely replicating a conventional structure with a Sharia stamp. So the Islamic label fosters trust, confidence, particularly among faith-based investors like ourselves. But its value lies in the rigorous Sharia governance and compliance processes that underpin or the label is derived from. So ultimately, the focus should be on ensuring the financial activities align with Islamic principles, whether or not it explicitly carries that label or not. But be that as it may, I think the label is important. Another way to look at it is obviously Islamic finance is very old, but its modern applications are quite new. So I'd say this label helps to make the public more aware with the products, their structures, their names, and whatnot. So I do agree with the labeling of our products.
Okay, that's a great point, Mr. Mustafa. As it speaks to the broader appeal of Islamic finance beyond just Muslim investors. Let's look at wealth from an Islamic perspective. Islam encourages responsible wealth management, while ensuring that financial growth is not only sustainable but also ethical. And over time, we've seen individuals, whether the HNIs, high net worth individuals, the challenge is always, balancing wealth accumulation with Sharia compliance by, let's say, by avoiding interest-based investment while seeking halal avenues for growth. From an Islamic finance perspective, how do wealthy individuals grow and preserve their wealth in a way that aligns with Islamic principles?
Well, the products are out there, just like the conventional market. I guess my answer would depend on the investor, on the individual specific risk appetites and the types of asset classes they are interested in. But like in assessing an equity investment, for example, I would say there are two basic screens or processes that need to be applied to inform an investor on whether this is a Sharia compliant product to be included in their portfolio. So the first is quite basic. It's referred to as an industry screen, very straightforward. So basically, you assess the industry, the entity you want to invest in, operates in. You assess whether it's Sharia compliant or not. This immediately rules out all conventional financial institutions. It rules out anything linked with alcohol and the bet Nigers and the likes and other prohibited activities. Exactly. So the second test is more technical in nature. This is more of a financial screen. So what you do is you assess the company's financial ratios vis-a-vis Islam's opinions on these ratios. This is more technical in nature, and perhaps you would require some sort of practitioner's advice on how to proceed. But as an Islamic finance lawyer myself, these are things you often advise on, and these products are often entered into through contracts like Musharaka, Mudaraba, and Wakala, which are essential for wealth generation. These are the contracts that drive these types of activities. There are other things on the market as well. You have debt-linked structures such as Sukuk and whatnot, with varying degree of risks and appetites.
And also on the asset side, we have real estate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There are a lot of asset classes. Even in your bank, for example, you could walk into a Taj bank now and participate in a profit sharing or a Mudaraba account where your proceeds are used for the bank's financing activities and you sharing the profits with them. So there are different ways. There are different ways. For the preservation aspects, like you mentioned, you could diversify. You could invest in real estate, equities, commodities, and other things that fit with Sharia, just to spread the risk across various industries that are compliant with Sharia. One thing people forget to mention is that you can also preserve your wealth through zakat.
Yes,
So zakat, for example, exactly. So it purifies your wealth and it also contributes to the society. And these are ways in ensuring that you stick with Islamic finance to the letter. So yeah, I'd say wealthy people have a lot of options available to them, and they're in the very unique position where they have the finances to engage the relevant practitioners to advise on how to deploy these their funds towards these types of assets and asset classes.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mustapha. You know, wealth in Islam is viewed as an amana. I don't know if I'm correct, which means trust. And this must be managed responsibly. So,
Absolutely.
as it's explained, that individuals can grow and preserve their assets in a Sharia compliant manner through various means. You explained that they can invest in different allowed businesses. You mentioned Sukuk, and we also talk about real asset, which is real estate, and we also have our Sharia compliant equity fund. And you talk about zakat, which is also part of how well the individuals or HNIs can also generate income in a Sharia compliant way. Thank you very much for that. As we wrap up the conversation, you know, I believe you will agree with me that sustainability is becoming an integral part of Islamic finance. What are the current issuance trends in green, social, and sustainability sukuk? So are we seeing more interest from investors, and how do these instruments shape the future of Islamic capital markets?
Absolutely. So we've definitely seen an upward trend in these products. So green, social, and sustainability sukuks, the significant growth in recent years. This reflects the growth and the shift towards ESG in the general markets itself, both Islamic and conventional. So these sukuk are designed to fund projects that address some renewable energy, climate change, affordable housing, or anything else that you can link to a sustainable development goal. Last summer, the International Capital Markets Association and the Islamic Development Bank released, they published joint guidelines on these instruments. Okay. And I think they're very, very helpful guides for practitioners. And if you're a practitioner of Islamic finance, specifically Sukuk, this is something you should read. But the numbers are in, and it shows that yes, there is growth in this. So by Q3 last year, we reached 11 billion in issuances in this market, which is
11 billion.
$11 billion, yeah, which is significant rise in the market since 2017, where it began. So the momentum is strong. But despite this growth, it is also a drop in the ocean in comparison to the conventional markets, which shows that we have a lot of room to expand. According to the London Stock Exchange Group, their data shows that 55% of institutional investors on their platform have noted that they want to invest in green or sustainability-linked sukuk within the next 3 years. But what they've also said is that the challenge they have is from the supply side. You know, 45% of them note that they do not often have adequate amounts of offerings on the market. So this is an issue, but it's one that is being met by the market, and gradually over time will continue to be met by the market. Myself, right now, I'm working on sustainability-linked instruments where I work.
Okay.
As someone who works in impact investing space, this is an area that's particular interest of mine, and inshallah, we should have some of these products available on the market within the next couple months or so. Finally, I'll say one trend I've noticed is that this same London Stock Exchange group mentioned that 60% of the investors on the platform note that they do not have a full understanding of Sukuk generally, not just the green, social, and sustainability, Sukuk generally. So this is a problem that we have been facing since the inception of Islamic finance, and it's a continuing issue we would have to address and deal with. Capacity building is essential in building the awareness of the market and let people know that this is a product they can key into and they can achieve their commercial objectives just as they would with conventional transactions, albeit these ones are structured in a Sharia manner. So that's the direction I would say the market is going for green, social, and sustainable sukuk. It's an upward trajectory, but there are still challenges that are yet to be met.
There are still challenges that are yet to be met. Talking about, you mentioned London Stock Exchange. So what do you think about Nigerian sukuk market, which is the most used instrument in Nigeria at the moment? I'm talking about the Islamic financial institutions in Nigeria.
So for the Nigerian sukuk market, I would say from my experience with Nigeria, I'd say the most common sukuk structure is undoubtedly the Ijara sukuk. Yes, so the sale and lease back structure is something that we have deployed, I think, on the federal level and on several or a couple states, and as well as a few corporate entities. I think that the last sukuk I worked on in Nigeria was additional tier 1 capital. This was a Mudaraba sukuk for one of the Islamic banks. And it was truly a fantastic transaction to work on because it was a real market first for Nigeria. But these are very, I think another bank is trying to come to market now with a similar product. But generally speaking, I would say Ijara is overwhelmingly the most popular sukuk structure in the Nigerian markets. And globally as well, it's not just unique to Nigeria. Ijara is pretty much Exactly. Wakala is another close second, and this has been the case more recently. I would say initially Ijara has been the driving structure, but Wakala seems to be gaining some momentum with its structures like Murabaha, which people use for Tawarruk, are very, very common as well, especially for working capital for financial institutions. But this is more of a global phenomenon as opposed to a Nigerian trend. Tawarruk is not really something that we utilize as much in Nigeria compared to other countries like Malaysia, etc., etc.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mustapha, for sharing your valuable insights on Islamic finance and capital markets. We look forward to more enlightening discussions in the future. Jazakallah khairan and bye.
Jazakallah khairan. Thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate everything. All right, all the best.
And you too. Thank you so much. Bye.